welcome back to my channel. My name's Amber. This is About That Mama Life, and on my channel we do videos like the one we're gonna do today. We're talking about nails. I also do skincare, beauty, even some DIY and recipe videos. So if you like content like that, consider subscribing to my channel. It really does help me out a lot, and I upload very frequently. So today we're going to be talking about all about nails. I'm going to be reviewing this Sparkle & Co. peel base. I'm going to show you first how I pop off my dip mani using the peel base, some tips and tricks, and then I'll also show you how I get my really pretty everyday jelly pink mani. Now that is going to be at the end of the video, so if you want to see how I got this, stay tuned for that, and let's get into the peel base. So the first thing that I'm doing here is filing around the edges of the nail. You want to break the seal between your nail products and your nails, so that glossy top coat and the edge of the dip. Then you can get a tool in between your manicure and your nail, and once you've broken that seal, just take it slow, don't force anything. It will just pop off. And you can see there's no damage to my nail. The manicure just popped off. Easy peasy. Couldn't be easier. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through the rest of these so you can see the process I go through, and I'll share a few tips and tricks along the way. So this manicure I had for about 3 days. I did the peel base from the very top of my cuticle all the way to the end. I painted 3 full layers covering the entire nail. This lasted me about 3 days, and that was 3 days of washing hair, bathing, playing with my toddler, so it was pretty heavy wear and tear on these nails. I wanted to include this spot so you could see I was struggling a little bit. I had to refile a couple of different times in order to really be able to get my tool in between the product and my nail. That's okay, don't force anything, just kind of work with it a little bit, and then boop, just popped off. So if you want your manicure to last about 3 days, do a few coats over your entire nail. Then you can just pop it off. Mine came off in a tickle war, so I went ahead and took one hand off and then filmed me taking the other hand off. If you want your manicure to last you about a week, continue watching how I do my gel manicure and you'll see the full process of that as well. I'm just buffing my nail now. Okay, let's get into my jelly pink mani. First thing we're going to do is the Sparkle & Co. peel base. And I'm going to show you what I do if I want my manicure to last me more than a few days. If I want to get a good week to 10 days out of it, I'm going to paint it on a little different. I'm going to start about 3/4 of the way down, or about halfway, depending on how long your nail is, how long you want it to last, and how easy you want it to be able to pop off. So in this one, I'm going about 3/4 of the way up. And I'm also not touching the sides or the cuticle line. I'm just painting a stripe in the center, covering the majority of the nail. I'm leaving those sides and the cuticle alone. That way when your product starts to lift a little bit, your manicure doesn't just pop right off. You get a little bit more wear time out of it. I'm just painting that down the center, leaving the cuticle and the sides of the nail alone here. Now let that hand dry, and I switch over and do the opposite hand while that's drying. Takes about 1 to 2 minutes because I do pretty thin coats. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward the rest of this video so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Not necessarily in real time, but sped up a little bit. So I've got one layer on both hands, just waiting for it to dry, do the touch test, and I'm going to go ahead and paint a second layer on. Earlier in the video, you saw me pop off that manicure that I had on for about 3 days. I had done a full 3 layers on my entire nail, and the nails just popped off after a few days. So if you like to change your colors often, do a few layers all over your nail. You want it to last about a week, 10 days, depending on how rough you are. Do what I just did. Now we're going to go into our step 1 base bond. I'm using all Sparkle & Co. products here, and I'm using what's called French Pink. Now you'll notice I create kind of a wall and just place my fingernail on the product instead of shoving it in and dipping all the way in. I find that you get a better application this way, and there's more than enough room in the jar to do that. I'm starting 3/4 of the way down, not going all the way into my cuticle here. Sometimes I'll go all the way up on my first layer, and then I've got to spend a little bit more time buffing away that area. Sometimes I'll do this application and I'll do 3/4 of the way up. And you can see there, I didn't go all the way up to my cuticle, just about 3/4 of the way up. I'll paint it on, I'll dip, and then I'll brush away. These products are so amazing. They are so fine. You almost don't, they do the work for you. You almost don't even need to buff this powder. It is absolutely beautiful. So base bond, 3/4 of the way up. I spend a little bit of time painting this on really thin and really taking my time as if you would do nail polish. Because remember, anywhere that this base bond goes is where your powder is going to stick to. If you do thick coats and you just kind of shove it in the dip, it's going to be a little gloppy and it's going to take you more time buffing later. So I'm doing my second coat here, and now I'm going to go all the way up to the cuticle. Really taking my time, making sure everything's coated. I'm using thin coats. I'm spreading it around. I'm not letting it flood all through my cuticle. And then I'm just kind of pressing that into that wall of dip. I go ahead and give it a second and then just dust away the excess. It is such a beautiful light jelly pink, so fine and just so easy to work with. I'm going all the way up to the cuticle line here, keeping my layers really nice and thin, taking my time, and then setting it in the powder. This is going to keep your layers nice and thin and make sure your manicure looks beautiful without you having to do too much buffing and work. I just took a toothpick there. That's a little pro tip. If you get that glued side of your nail to your finger, it just kind of helps open that up, and any little imperfections you can kind of tap it away with that toothpick. I'm going to let you guys just kind of watch as I paint, dip, and brush away, and I'll be back with you in a sec. Okay, so I am starting my third coat here. I did 3 coats, all of the French pink on this one. That was thick enough for me to just add enough strength to my natural nails without keeping any kind of bulk, keeping them nice and thin. Sometimes I'll do 4 coats. You got a couple options here. If you're doing this jelly pink and it's really light, like the one I'm doing, I do all 3 coats of the pink. If you're using a color that's more intense, you can do a dip of clear, a dip of color, a dip of clear. And then you're not adding a whole lot of color, but still keeping your nice 3 or 4 layers. You can do a couple color dips and then a couple clear. It's really going to be personal preference depending on what color you're using. If your pink is darker than mine, you might want to do 2 dips of pink and 1 dip of clear. So those are just some options to give you some ideas. But I really love this color and how light it is. It's barely a tint of pink. So I really kind of built that up to get a little bit of that pink color shining through. So here we are on our 3rd layer. I'm still just doing my base bond really nice and slowly painting that on, keeping it thin, not letting that bond get onto my cuticles or the sides of my finger, just trying to paint as nice and thin and evenly as possible so that my dip goes on smooth. When I was done with this, I really didn't even need to file and buff, but of course I did because, let's be honest, you gotta. And there we are. 5 nails, all dipped in French pink, 3 layers. Now we're going in with Solidify, which is the second step. This is going to provide that hardening process. So when you apply Solidify, you want to add enough to penetrate all 3 layers. I dip in, wipe my brush off, and then paint the whole nail. That's enough for me to get through all 3 layers and get them nice and hardened. You want to let that dry. I typically only need about 30 seconds to a minute, and it's nice and dry. Now I'm going to take a nail file, lost my train of thought there, and I'm going to buff the sides, edges, and go ahead and shape that tip of my nail with this. Sometimes you get the finger stuck to the nail from the base bond. I just get in between the sides and reshape with this. I didn't need to buff anywhere near my cuticle because everything came out really thin and really beautiful. And now I've got them shaped. I'm just going to take a buffer block all over just to make sure everything's nice and smooth. And then I just brush away any excess dust. And like I said before, I didn't even really need to buff this. It's so fine and so beautiful and easy to work with, but the OCD in me made me do it. I had to. Okay, so I have filed and buffed all of my nails. We're going to go back in with Solidify. I'm just using a very thin amount over all of my nails, and this is going to catch any loose powder and really solidify it down to your manicure, and it's going to help prevent any loose powder from getting into your glossy coat and mucking up your brush. So that's just a best practice. Now I'm going in with my Glossy Coat. This is the Glossy 2.0 from Sparkle, and it is beautiful. I'm really just taking my time here, doing nice, thin little coats and making sure that I'm getting everything really precise. Take your time during any of the application that you're painting and just really make sure that it goes on where you want it to and you're keeping it thin. I'm telling you, that will save you so much time later. And it just makes your manicure look so much more refined. Now, I'm by no means a professional. I'm just a DIYer, but I really feel like I've kind of gotten my process down to making it look really beautiful, salon quality, or pretty close to it anyway. So there's my first coat. It is beautiful, and I'm just going to let it dry down here. This is a very fast dry time. It only takes 30 seconds to a minute to let it dry. And we're going to go in with coat number 2. This one I'll do a little bit thicker of a coat, but still really keeping my layers thin and precise and not getting it all over my skin, really making sure that it's looking beautiful and just complementing that beautiful color that we just put down. And there we go. Final layer of gloss. This is the most satisfying part, isn't it? And there it is. It's so beautiful. And here's the finished mani. I love how it turned out. This is my favorite everyday, beautiful, understated, just lovely jelly pink. It's got a gorgeous gloss and it came out so pretty. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.